So at this time, I'd like to now call upon Gwen Phillips once again with their next presentation on the introduction to data governance.
Actually, we're going to do something fun right now. Because I know how difficult it is to make a transition from lunchtime to the afternoon. The belly gets full, we all start feeling like, where's that corner for my nap? Maybe that's just me, I don't know. So when you all came in, you were given these little clicker things, little remote control looking things. Don't start pushing any buttons on them now, because we're getting to the point where these things are going to get activated. Okay? But I want to draw your attention to them. I also want to draw your attention to the work you guys have done over the past few years in developing your Northern Plan. And I'm looking at a mid-year report here for the Health Authority, and I'm seeing some of the stuff in here that the Northern Health region wanted. Looking at the health and wellness plans across the regions, we were going, oh my gosh, we thought we were going to be looking at health plans, and what we saw emerging from the first round of planning was not really about health as the disease model, but it was really about health as the outcome of living wellness. And so we saw the plans coming from the regions. Some of them talked about housing, some of them talked about, as was noted earlier, food security. Some talked about water. There are communities in British Columbia still who do not have safe, secure drinking water in their communities. Mainstream Canada does not believe this kind of thing actually exists in Canada. That there are substandard drinking water, substandard sewer systems. You're kidding me, right? No, just come to the reserve next to your community and you'll find those kinds of conditions. So we recognize that really what we're seeing is not so much just health plans that have come, but health and wellness plans that speak to where the communities are at right now and what they see as needing to do to move forward. So when we in the Interior, for example, put our plan together, we had about 7 or 8 strategic priorities. We actually had identified one under each of the directives that we wanted to see move forward. But then when we started to actually think in terms of attachment of resources to those plans, because the First Nations Health Authority is trying to resource us differently, they're saying, figure out your plans and then we'll find out how we can invest in those plans. Not the old, okay, there's going to be a call for proposals and then we all sort of rush the proposal writing thing, and those who have good proposals get money and those who don't. And so we recognize that is not a good business case for moving forward. We have to do something different here. How do we actually move the priorities of the community, move the priorities of a nation, move the priorities of a region forward when we don't really know what those priorities are? So before lunch, we saw some of the work done. We looked at the environment, as in the north, as being a very, very significant issue. And so some additional resources have been brought to the north to actually investigate that issue. Find out what does it really mean and where are we at. Take stock, get some kind of a situation analysis underway. So we've gone through, the staff, not me, thank goodness I didn't have to go through in all detail in all the reports because it's a lot of work. Staff have been going through all the regional reports, the North, the Interior, Vancouver Island, Fraser, Vancouver Coastal, and identifying in those reports what the things were for that particular region of importance. And so they put together some slides that we're going to see here in a minute or two, okay? And this is where it gets exciting. Those of you who have clickers, you are going to be asked to vote on these questions that come up. They'll be A, B, C, D. Are we still using A, B, C, D, E to match up with the buttons that are on your clickers? So you'll notice there's little buttons on there. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Okay. You'll also notice at the very bottom left-hand corner, we're not pushing these buttons yet, remember, is a button that says go. All right? When I tell you to, we're going to push that button that says go. And a little green light's going to start flashing on your clicker, and that's when we know you're loaded. You're ready to go, okay? The questions will come up. We'll ask you to vote. You don't get to do it, fix a mistake. So think before you vote. Make sure you push the button that matches up with your top priority. Push one button, and as everybody votes, we're actually going to see real-time results coming up on the screen. Okay, so you know that Family Feud survey says. Well, we're going to do not a feud, but we're going to find out what the family thinks by the survey says. So is everybody understanding? These are our clickers for voting. we're getting ready with the questions. Prompt questions. Everybody ready to press go? Press go and it should show a green light on your screen. On your little thingy blinky thingy. Blinky blinky thingy, does that make sense? Are we good? It might take a second because they got to kind of sink in. Sink in, synchronize.
Oh, somebody's already voted.
Oh, somebody voted. Where are you? Premature articulation. Okay, so what is your top priority for supporting healthy children and youth? One vote. Vote now. Are you in favor of A, B, C, D, E, or F? And as you vote, what is your top priority for supporting healthy children and youth? A, physical and mental wellness. B, family income and food security. C, child safety. D, child learning. E, healthy child behavior. F, family, peer, and community connections. Real-time voting, 15, 18, 17, or 16, 17, 18. Whose clicker's not working? You got some clickers not working? Hold on, the technical team will be with you in a second. Oh no! This worked so well last week. You did press go and your clicker started going green on you, little green light? Oh, yours were red. Yeah. Oh, where's that IT guy? Hey. Maybe I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. So we got 24 to come through. Only 24? 25? So make sure you're actually giving a good press on the button, and you can. Do they reset the go on theirs if it's not active? The IT guy is going to tell us what to do.
Hello everybody. Just wanted to explain when you turn these things on.
It's up! It's up!
Just wanted to explain when you're turning these things on. You'll see the light flash green and red, and then it will just turn off, so there won't be any light on there at all. And then after that, when you do one of the A to F, it should flash green once. Now, if you try to do G, something that's not there, it'll flash red. And if you've done A to F and you change your mind, like Gwen said, it's we can't go back, or we can, but then we have to restart for everybody. So
do we want to try this one again? Start with again?
yeah. Do you want to do that? Do you want to start from afresh?
Let's start like we never had that first instruction.
Right.
Okay, we'll start this thing again, folks. Let's see. I don't know what they were doing on the island, but it worked real well. I'm not going to tell them that we messed up here in the north. Okay? I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to. Sorry, you guys. So we're going to reset. So Cohen's going to reset things for us. Cohen is the IT guy. It's Cohen, isn't it?
Yep.
Maybe somebody in there now. Okay. Matthew's going to say, yeah, see, I told you guys. Matthew Kinch is one of the Secretariat support people that was here with us last in Parksville when we were last week. He couldn't be with us today. He's actually defending his dissertation, I believe. He's couldn't be one of those academic folk. So he's going to say, yeah, I wasn't there, that's why things didn't work properly. Okay, so we're going to go, touch go again.
Oh, should be okay.
Yes.
Should be good.
Yep.
So go, do it now. Come on, help me, go ahead.
You can just, yeah, vote whichever one you want now, A to F.
Okay, so be able to vote now, he says. Voting's going.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, 24. It's moving. It's in the 30s now, I think. 32, I think. 32 votes are in. Is that what that says?
Yeah.
34. Is that it now? Is it moving anymore?
34.
Okay, so are we done at that point? Is that what's happening? Is it still moving? Still moving. It's still moving. See, those people that are not easily deciding, right? They're just got to take a second to figure this out. It's still moving? No?
36. Tap 36.
Okay, so we're gonna say right now we're gonna just see it. And again, this is just an example to give us a flavor for what people are thinking. As we move forward through the consultation and you start developing your wellness strategies, that's where you really have to drill down to your priorities. So what does the survey say? Survey says, whoa, B, family income and food security is the top choice. And F, family, peer, community connections right behind it. And A is tied with F as physical and mental wellness. Hey, I have an idea. If we get the people growing their own food with their family, they'll get fed, they'll get well, physically well. Hey. So one objective doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a whole bunch of different things. You can actually meet a whole bunch of objectives with one activity potentially. Okay, we're going to go on to another question. So we don't have to reload these things or anything, right? So you're not reloading or anything. He's going to reset for the next question, which is, based on those top priorities, what's the second most important area for healthy children and youth? Physical and mental wellness, family income and security, child safety, child learning, healthy child behavior, family, peer, and community connections. Second most important area is supporting healthy children and youth. Voting is going on. Vote away. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 27, 30. It's moving. 31. I think 32. 33.
35.
35, 36. Come on.
Some people are exercising.
Come on.
Well, Gwen, Charles was pressing 5 times.
Hey. It'll only count the clicker once. Ha 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 ha. All right. There were 37 responses there. 38. So that's 38?
Yeah.
38.
Okay. Shall we close it down and see what the survey says? All right. Survey says A, physical and mental wellness is the top priority for our children and youth. Second is family income and food security and the family peer connections again. All right. Next question. Okay. Where do you think we need to focus our efforts first? A, improve community-based services. B, increase First Nation decision-making in key service areas. C, increase investment and support for community-based services. Promote collaboration. D, promote collaboration and resolve interjurisdictional challenges. And E, change provincial and federal policy. Where do you think we need to focus first? Vote away. Dun, 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 dun. Or is that the wrong game?
You play whatever you
I don't know. My son's the game player. I don't know any other Indigenous young man who knows more useless facts facts than my son. He's like, Mom, did you know that one? No, I didn't. I don't know when I'll ever want to know that, but thank you. He reads things like that Guinness book, and he reads unknown facts and things just for good things. 32, 34, come on, who needs to vote? Who needs to vote? 30, where are we?
35.
35, a couple more votes coming in. Press hard, press hard. Press harder. Okay, let's lock her down and see what we got here. Survey says, focus in on improving community-based services and increasing investments for who? That's not a surprise to me, I really don't think. And looking at then increase our decision-making, change policies, and promote collaboration and resolve interjurisdictional challenges is sort of last on the list. All right. Is that it? That's it? Is there more questions? Oh, okay, more questions. Okay. These guys were thinking ahead, eh? They knew that investments was probably going to be the top priority, so look at here. Where do you think we need to make first investments to address these determinants? Support for First Nations to develop comprehensive community plans. Support for First Nations to collaborate with one another with service providers. Commitment from federal provincial partners. Or D, investments, direct investments in community-based programs and services. Where do we need to first make those investments? A, B, C, or D? Vote away. I'm trying to remember the Family Feud thing, and I can't remember how it goes. Is that all the votes in there now?
34.
34? Oh, 35. Let's see if we can find that 36 and 37 that was there before. Are they there?
Oh, 36.
37? Hey, 38?
Somebody's been hiding.
If we get to 40, we got to start all over again. Okay?
Okay.
Lock her in. Let's see what we got. Whoa, direct investments in community-based programs and services. All right. And then neck and neck, we see A and C. Support for comprehensive community plans and commitment from federal and provincial partners. Well, I'm glad to hear that because those are the kinds of things that I'm actually going to be pushing for as we move forward. Was that the last question? There's one more? Okay, I think there's one more. What determinant do you think we need most to discuss at the next regional caucus meeting? Okay. Education, employment and economic opportunities, healthy child and family development, environment, housing, all of the above. Hey, I heard that. That's an easy answer. Is it? How many of you were at the Crown First Nations gathering when I started singing my nation's vision song, where I was actually at the Quality of Life gathering, I'm on the Quality of Life panel, and it's my turn at the mic, and I start singing this song, and I look over, all of the federal and provincial bureaucrats in the audience were like, what the heck? All the First Nations folk were all grinning, Gwen's at it again. That's where I met the Director General for Social Policy, and that's where we got the Data Governance Initiative kicked off, so I'm really pleased that all of that happened. So it looks like the voting is done. Let's see what we said. F. All of the above. All right. Nobody voted for employment and economic opportunities as a standalone. Boom, everything else got a couple votes, but it looks to me like we got to deal with everything. And really, if we're talking about a comprehensive community plan, we are dealing with everything. And I hear these smart old ladies over here going, not smart old ladies, these smart ladies over here. Go in. Go in. You know what? If you do the planning work, and actually all the other things get addressed. This old lady here knows these smart ladies over here. Okay, so that was our questions. We now know at the next caucus session we're going to be dealing with a very extensive agenda. and really starting to think about what are our priorities. And if one priority is such, how do we actually get to that and maybe address some of the other priorities along the way? I challenged my own nation a few years back and I said, what are we doing with that right to harvest timber? You know, as BC Indians, we got the right to harvest timber for our own purposes. Is anybody doing that? Why not? We have a shortage of housing in our communities. Timber frame housing is one of the easiest things to do. All you need is a tiny little mill to make timber out of logs. Why are we not doing these things? Because CMHC said we didn't. Oh, let's try differently, not harder, as we move forward. Let's think differently as we move forward. So this is a segue into the next presentation I'm going to give. These clickers, there will be a place for you to read.
We're gathering them.
Oh, they're going to gather them, okay. So they're going to gather the clickers. There used to be a little box by the door, but they want to make sure they get them before anybody leaves for the day. Yeah, Doug's heading out now. He's got to get on a plane so he can get back to some other meetings for the morning. So thank you, Doug, for coming and sharing with us. Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Safe journey.
I see you job out of here.
It's like at home I have a saying, if you stay longer than 10 minutes, you're not a guest, you got to get it yourself. Yes, certainly 10 minutes after that, you're probably family or a friend. So the reason that I asked them if we could actually put the clicker exercise in front of this presentation is because the clicker exercise is really about us at home trying to decide for ourselves what our priorities are and what we're going to sort of put our resources to, what we're going to action. But it's really a challenge, and I know back home myself as a person who was responsible initially for as a director of education. When I was director of education, we broke the master tuition agreements, and I had fun with that. And how did we do that? By playing policy. We held our kids out of school on September 30th, and if you know how the nominal roll works, that meant the school district didn't get paid, okay? So for every staff Indian student that was normally residing on reserve attending public school, I used to know those policies. We held our kids out, they didn't get paid, they said, oh, what the heck? We said, let's negotiate. And now we know local tuition agreements are the norm. We all have those kind of relationships with our school districts. So we should not fear policy. We need to be intimately understanding of what that stuff is, and then we need to know how we can change it to make it better for ourselves. How we can use it to actually make things better for ourselves. So I'm a little bit weird. I'm not a data geek. No, I'm not. Who's that data guy that said, oh, no, no. I'm like, no, I'm actually a governance geek. But I've come to realize that there he is. Without data, governance is nothing but an exercise in futility, okay? And what I mean by that is you can make all the promises to your people and you can even meet those promises, but unless there's some evidence that it's been done, they won't even know it. They won't acknowledge it. Who knows whether or not you're going to get elected next time, right? So really, all data is like I say in here, it's enabling First Nations to tell our own stories in our own terms. And I tell you, when I was the director of education, came to actually understand that our community needed a little bit different services, etc., than they were given to us at that point in time. So we started what we call the CHIP program. When I was the director of education, I started the first fetal alcohol syndrome and fetal alcohol effects community-based healing and intervention program. It was before the province even talked about fetal alcohol syndrome. It was before anybody was talking about it. But as a director of education, I knew something was going on with the kids in school. They couldn't learn properly. What? Found out about the impact of alcohol in the developing fetus. Ding, ding, one of my elders said, Gwen, there was a time in the 70s when nobody was sober. Nobody was sober. So if you have a population that's heavily into alcohol use, and we're still having babies, it made total sense to me. So we went together with University of British Columbia back in the early 1990s, and we did a full psych assessment of our school-age population at that time. So every kid in school, and the kids that were coming up, so we reached down to about age 3, and we reached up to about age 25 to catch this cohort and examine them. And we didn't just do the school-based studies, we actually brought in the doctors and did psychological, we did the full assessments, physical assessments, the whole 9 yards. And when we could also do it, we had the testimonials of the parents. What were you doing when you were carrying this baby? Because without the direct evidence, it's really hard to have the proof, right? There's no test to actually, after the fact, go, oh yes, this brain damage occurred because of fetal alcohol exposure. There's a way you actually go about getting the evidence to actually have this condition recognized. So ladies, you see that little red sign in the bathroom that says, if you're going to drink, blah, 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 you're going to... That was My Nation that got that happening. We changed the bylaws in British Columbia. We changed the School Act in British Columbia to have fetal alcohol syndrome recognized as a diagnosable and then supportable special need. Okay? So we should not fear policies. When we run up against them, we figure out how do we actually use this to our benefit. So as I was reading policy one day and my governance work at home, I'm going, oh, for every data collection instrument that we give to the Indians, we're going to give them the technology to collect that data. Oh, excuse me, Indian Affairs, we do get the data collection instruments, many data collection instruments, but we're yet to receive the technology. You know, do you get a data collection system to actually collect that data and boom, pitch a button and boom, the report goes? No. In my community, we had boxes of papers, stacks of boxes. We had extra trailers to house those stacks of boxes with the extra papers, and we were afraid to throw anything away because we might have to get to a court case or we might have to something, right? No real way to manage information or data. No idea without going back and doing a big search, right? Evaluation time, oh my gosh, scary business. Okay, now we gotta like almost stop everything and get this evaluation done so we can get it done so we can get our next money. Because it was never about looking and reflecting back to see what we could do better for ourselves. We were told you had to do an evaluation. Year 4 of your health 5-year transfer, you will do an evaluation and blah, blah, blah. And we used to do it a certain way for a certain thing for Health Canada. But we're not doing it for Health Canada anymore. We're doing these things for ourselves. So the evaluation can't look like it used to do. We've got to put a mirror up in front of ourselves. And you know that thing they call situation analysis? SWOT? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Well, I said to my chiefs, it's about time we switch that to start with our truth. Okay? Because nobody ever talked about the fetal alcohol prior to it. Nobody talked about the sexual abuse. Nobody talked about the historic violence. We were just living with the symptoms of it. I had a cousin say, wait, how come we're allowed to play together as children, but when we get to be adults, we're supposed to hate each other? And it was from sexual abuse 3 generations back that nobody wanted to talk about. Nobody wanted to heal about. And we have to. And we say, name it to tame it. If you don't put it out there, it's going to sneak around and bite you in the butt. Right? So we've got to really, and My Nation came clear to understand, this is not about your trauma or your trauma or your trauma. This is about all of our trauma collectively. So it's not about Gwen suffering or Joe suffering or Mary suffering. It's about the Denofa Nation suffering. And how are we going to get well? Well, we can't just put the burden on Joe or Mary or Gwen. We've got to do this collectively. And so we recognize that, well, the challenge to be well rests with every individual. The environment and all of those other things are so important. But really, the ability to measure that progress towards well-being is so important. We have in our vision statement, celebration. My Nation's vision statement speaks to celebrating who we are and our history and our ancestral homelands. That means the good, the bad, and the ugly history, okay? So we have to go through that, and going through that allowed us to say, hey, this is how we work. This is not how we behave. We didn't used to fight this way. We used to be, we want to be, we will be. So we start to change the language and own these things again and move them and put them in front of us as the way we're going to move towards. So the vision that My Nation took 2 years to adopt that vision. We had to take it everywhere so that it was owned by everybody, not just the chiefs in the boardroom. Oh, the chiefs in the boardroom, you know? Everybody had to own it. It got put into language, the kids drew pictures, and everybody had to own it. There was an adjustment made in our vision statement. It used to say speaking our language because we have the Denofa language. And when we started walking through our history, we said, hey, that one Shuswap band that lives in our territory, they're actually from the nation up the road, but historically they came and they lived here, and we said, okay. So we need to acknowledge that they're part of our nation's work now. So our vision statement now says, speaking our languages. So we recognize that other tribal group that lives in our territory, they're not going to take over the territory, but we're not going to take over their language. So we acknowledge each other, we respect each other that way. So having that vision was important, but having the values that attach to that, our cultural values, bringing them back out of the attic, out of the ground, and putting them in front of us again was very important. That value set said to us, we need to actually talk in terms of our own well-being. My Nation started to describe our journey towards well-being. Not just the picture of well-being, but how the journey was going to occur. Those were the principles. Those principles, based on our values, that was another 2 or 3 years' work. So the vision, values, and principles was almost 6 years of work in community. Now, those who've done the comprehensive community planning, 1 year, folks, get that plan done. It's like you can't even get the meeting to get the plan talked about in 1 year in some of our communities. We've got so much stuff going on. So they gotta like, whoa, stop you guys, you outside guys. You know, you can't even do this kind of stuff in your own bureaucracy. How are you expecting this stuff to go on down here? So as I was doing our nation rebuilding work at home, and we started as a nation to define again what it is we wanted as the Dunukka people, I'm like, okay, we can do this work all we want as the Dunukka nation. But when we bring it to the outside world, when we're trying to bring it to quote unquote the treaty table or one of these places where the tripartites meet, they're going to look at us and go, oh, nice work, Indians, you know, the little pat on the head, that's cute, but, you know, nothing we do is really valid until somebody from the outside world goes, oh yeah, that's good. Well, we know it's valid, but it's like these investors are kind of like, oh yeah. So, what did I do? We brought in Dr. Trevor Hancock and Dr. Clive Hertzman. Okay? They would come to your community, they would, well, Clive can't anymore, he's no longer with us for the Community Learning Partnership, but they would come and they would talk, right? So what? Shared with them what my nation was doing. Brought in a few Whigs from Mar and a couple from Annecy and a few of those places, because they'll come too, right? And they listened. And they heard these social scientists say, yeah, what you guys have described as the Dunukka nation is very valid. And in fact, we're just trying to get to that in the outside world. So in fact, those social scientists acknowledged that what my nation was doing with what they were trying to get back to, and that if they supported our work, that we could help lead them back to a better place. So it was like, okay, we've now got valid indicators for measuring our well-being as the Dunukka nation. How are we going to do this as this big vision statement we got across the province? Because it's the same challenge, people, okay? We got to go through this process. Every one of us as nations, because that vision statement of the province is a placeholder. It's a place marker for that work we have to do locally. Healthy, defining it in your own terms. Tsimshan, Giksan, whoever you are. You've got to own that concept of health. Because it's very different in our cultures. We've already talked about 17 languages, the diversity of the North. So we had to go back to our vision statement. Our vision statement had to go back to our creation story. That's what the elders said. Go back to the beginning and walk forward. That's about as beginning as we can get as the Dunukka. That's what says how we got here as human beings. So I think that's as close as we can get as our... In going back, we also remember the language that goes along with the stories. And all the other stories that are attached to the creation story. Because if you tell the whole story, it's a couple of days of an event. It tells all kinds of lessons along the way. How we behave as humans, how we relate to the other creatures that are here, etc., etc., etc. So many teachings are embedded in these stories. They are not stories that, oh, that was cute. They're teaching stories. So in my language we have, and I know you have them in your own language, these words for us mean basically the natural law, Acknowledgement, and then humans' relationship to that natural law, Acknowledgement. That's what we're trying to get back to again as Indigenous people. Recognizing the balance of the environment and the humans and all of the things within it, and making sure that we can be there for all time moving forward. We also have in our language, in the Dunukka, Akupukam. Akupukam literally means something that takes its life from the earth, like the roots of a plant, the roots of a tree. It's roots. Akupukamnam. We've added the nam on there. Akupukamnam. That now means my children, grandchildren. The humans, basically legacy. So we, by understanding these language, we know that our life as humans and the future generations is dependent upon the wellness of our earth below us. We take our life directly from that. In every one of our languages, as we go back and start discovering these concepts, it brings alliance, it brings well-being to our communities. People start seeing something outside of themselves that they can relate to and take some ownership of again. So as these things were happening, I looked around. My nation wasn't the only one doing these things. We're all doing these things. Every one of us, different levels, different places. Some of us are just starting to think about it. Some of us are so far well advanced, we're going, please investors, will you just invest? These programs are not doing us any good. In fact, I know of one community, one First Nation in British Columbia who's actually said, we're not taking any federal money from Indian Affairs anymore. Well, really, for some communities, they don't give us a lot anyway, so it was probably an easy decision to make, but they've actually got enough resources coming from their own business ventures and their partnerships, external investors, that they've replaced that money, which means they can say, to the other government. No more holding them by the neck. So what we've done as the Denukha Nation, and looking around, we've created some alliances with other nations that were doing similar work. We saw the Penticton Band. Saw that this morning. I used an example from their community plan. They've really, over the past few years, taken ownership over their destiny, reassociated themselves with their territory, their values, etc. We see the same thing happening around the province, in all the regions. And so I said, it would be really interesting if the Denukha could align with some of these other communities, because we represent diversity in BC. Indian Affairs likes the Swa First Nation, the Dragon Brags, right? Oh, come with me, I want to look good at my next Director General's meeting. You know, they don't want to show the communities that are having the challenges. And in BC, we're probably about half and half. Half are really having a lot of challenges, and half are not having so many challenges. So it's not a good thing for us, especially as we were looking at the Health Council work when we said we're not going to leave anybody behind. So the existing business case of feed the Swav Indians and forget about the ones that can't make it to the table, we're going, that is not going to happen with us. So I, as Gwen from the Denukha Nation, went out and sought some relationships with some of the other communities doing similar work, and we together put pressure on the federal government to say, let's do something different here. We're all going about doing our planning work. We've got visions, we've got goals, objectives, strategies, we know what we're doing here. We're doing this long-term planning. Well, they said, oh. We also said we're doing evaluation, okay? We're looking at what it is we're trying to achieve as outputs. That's almost always where the government ends, the federal government, provincial government end, on the outputs. Because it's hard to measure the outcome side of things. It's hard to measure the change that's occurred. It's easier to measure the event or the activity, okay? So when I was looking at the data collection instruments and trying to figure out in Ottawa one time, what the heck do you do with all this data collection? Well, we determine whether the program is efficient or not. I'm going, whoa. So these indicators are program indicators, they're not actually people indicators. You're never going to know whether there's well-being for First Nations, even though your logic model says that. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, you think you can do better? Oh yeah, we're already doing better. Really? So we got a Director General. Showed her what we were doing better. They're like, oh my gosh, you are doing better. We're not, don't make this a big political stink. Don't make this a big anything. Let's just incrementally, you guys in Ottawa, change the way you do your business. We're going to be changing the way we do our business in BC, and we'll meet you halfway. And you'll see what's going to happen because of what we're doing. They're like, okay, we kind of believe you a little bit here. So over the course of the past couple of years, they've been incrementally investing. First year, okay, we'll see what you can do, Gwen. So they invested in Gwen. So they've been buying my time from my nation to do data governance work in BC, because they see that we can do a far better job of reporting and being accountable to our own people than they can ever be to the Auditor General or whoever's come knocking. So we're getting pretty suave in Indian country. We know how to plan, we know how to do evaluation. What we don't have is good investments. And that's what we're really pushing for. When we can get a good model underneath us to do the planning, the evaluation work, etc., when we as individual Indigenous nations have defined what our indicators are, what are we going to measure towards well-being, okay? Not what are they going to measure, what are we going to measure towards our well-being? Our own indicators. When we put the mirror up in front of ourselves, what are we going to be looking at? That little girl this morning, right? The other side of the mirror, the common vision. Yes, all governments should be investing in that common vision. What government doesn't want to see healthy Indigenous people, right? Self-determining Indigenous people. But we're not going to get there by programs and services the way they structure them. Those indicators touch to our results, back up to the vision. Always measured against the vision, okay? You don't measure program efficiency, you measure the efficiency and the work of those machinery towards the vision, right? So we're telling them there's a different business model, and we're going to show them how it happens. So back home in my own nation, under my governance transition work, we developed this framework for our nation rebuilding. Okay? Very simple framework. It takes a long time to rebuild and implement in your own nation environment. But the excitement, the ability to actually generate trust and build trust with people along the way is phenomenal. The vision told you how long, values told you how long, the principles. That vision, values, and principles work is really governance work. It's really the higher level governance work. Between principles and policies, where standards start to be defined, okay? Standards. What are our standards going to be as Indigenous people? We're not going to accept the same standards that were given to us. We're not going to be looking at morbidity and mortality as standards for which we measure health. We're going to be finding our own ways to measure well-being. So we're going to look at our policies, because Doug's right. Policy liberation is what I call it. When we take hold of a policy rein and make a difference on how we can do things without actually having to go to scary self-government, without actually having to write law, we can affect change in policy, which in essence makes the same, has the same result, okay? As a nation, under my governance transition work, I did an analysis of almost every authority we would potentially draw down from a modern day treaty, and looked at all of the provincial and legal environment, provincially and federally, and we agreed we could probably do 90% of what we needed to do as an Indigenous nation inside the existing legal framework. There were some things that there's no way that the provincial law would ever even know what to do with around language and some of our traditional ecological knowledge, etc. But there was very few things that we couldn't do without having to make law for ourselves. Because when you make law, you have to enforce the law, and all of those processes are costly. So at this point in our development, we said to ourselves, Tanaka Nation, we actually need to get people well so they can participate in the law-making process better when we get to that place. So it's like an interim step towards full self-government. But what is self-government? It's making your own choices, your own decisions. So even saying, we don't want to write law, that is an exercise of self-government. So this whole structure, basically, the provincial government, when we shared this with them in the work we do, oh, by the way, my nation, we provide services on and off reserve to all Aboriginal people, regardless of status or residency. We've taken back the care of children from the ministry. So there's not an Aboriginal child in the care of the ministry in Tanaka territory. They're all under our care. And we use a different service model. And we've got the highest compliance results of any agency in the province. And we have better outcomes for children in care because we do things differently. We try differently, not harder, okay? We use appreciative inquiry. We don't go into our parents' houses looking to see what's wrong. We go in looking to see what's right. Because 9 times out of 10, there's only one thing that can be tweaked, and it'll avoid an apprehension, right? But when you go in with the mind of looking to see what's wrong in this house, well, you find all kinds of stuff that's wrong. Somebody come to my house on this any given day, they're going to apprehend my kids because my dishes were not done, my garbage was spilling over, and everything else was going on, right? So I probably would have my kids taken away if they came on the right day of the month. So, under the data initiative, as I've actually now got 2 deputy ministers signed on to this, the deputy minister over Health Canada, and they're going, yeah, we're going to watch what you're doing over there with the Health Authority in BC. And now ANSI. So when Doug talks to her, the pain of getting the ANSI direct, yeah, she was a little hesitant at first, but I winked at her. Colleen, let's talk as ladies. Let's talk as mothers, Colleen. And she's totally on board with us now. She's like, oh, I see what you guys are trying to do. You're just trying to get to a better business case, to get better, we can support you on this, okay? Before she knew what it really was, she was like, oh no. And then she had, of course, that Harper thing hanging on her shoulder. So I think it's a whole new world now. The investments are coming, and this is what they've committed to. They've committed to move from a program-based, departmentalized corporate reporting regime to community-based, comprehensive socioeconomic reporting. Okay? They've agreed to move from fragmented grants and contributions to an integrated social investment and planning model. They've agreed to move from independent program activity silo-based relationships, that's how we are today, to collaborative, interdepartmental, and tripartite relationships. They've agreed to move from haphazard access to administrative data systems, that policy by which they were supposed to provide us with technology, to access to standardized administrative applications for all communities. So we've done a costing, because you got to know the First Nations Health Authority did not get money for community-based data systems. They got money for administrative systems to support that institution. So now here we are, we know we need community-based systems. We're going, you guys got to pay for them, Health Authority, but they don't have the money. So if they pay for them, they got to take it from somewhere else. In the same way as the benefits thing. I full well agree with that resolution around the benefits. You're darn right. Every person working in our community should be getting the same pay as somebody working in the Black Tower or anywhere else. But maybe it shouldn't be those little institutions that we're demanding those resources for. I think we as Indigenous nations need to actually put the business case together to hit the feds with governance. Governance. I've told them, stop trying to provide programs and services, feds. The Constitution gives that jurisdiction to the provinces. And here you go, letting them off scot-free. In fact, you're letting the province triple dip. And the feds are going, what do you mean? I said, you guys give the provinces money to take care of all British Columbians, not British Columbians less Indians, okay? So they're already getting paid to provide services to us, right? Health, education, all of that stuff, they are. Plus you give them money to talk to us as Indians. They're like looking at me, like, hey, I read every expropriation document that comes off you. I know you actually pay municipalities because they don't get taxes from us. They're going, oh, so okay. So don't try and baloney me. I know. And I also know that they're the ones that are taking the revenues from our territories. Okay? So they're triple dipping, and what do we get from them? Huh? Say, enough of that. So the federal government is now agreeing that, okay, if we define what governance is, and if the leadership in British Columbia can create some standards around that, because I'll tell you, there was some rubber that hit the road in my own nation. As we declared our values, etc., that one community that's of a different nation, that's in our community, our territory, they split from our tribal council. Because our values, the principle said ecological integrity takes precedent over economic gain. You may have heard of the Jumbo Glacier Resort. My nation stood in front of that and said, no development. It's grizzly bears' homelands. No development. We don't need another four-season ski resort. The one local community supported it. Not the whole community, but the council. That same council was in the news, and some of you may see reports paying themselves $250,000 a year in a 70-member community, when some of the community members didn't even have running water. Okay? That was a values issue for us. Big time, right? Yeah. And now, that nation, those chief and council have been voted out, and they're looking back to a new relationship with us again. So values are very important. And as we align ourselves as Indigenous people, governance needs to be invested in by the federal government. They need to be paying our chiefs a decent salary. They need to be paying for systems, etc. And the province should be doing what the province should be doing. So moving forward, there's some sorting for us to do as Indigenous people. When we look at these wellness plans, let's not just think in terms of the service level. Let's think in terms of the governance requirements as well. Because data governance, people, it's not about health. It's not about education. It's not about child and family. It's about governance. It's about being informed as leaders to actually make decisions and be able to tell your own story in your own words. So we've got a team now under this data governance initiative. This is the third year it's been in place. A team now that exists that has got actually deputy ministers, director generals, assistant deputy ministers, technical folk. This is moving. And I'm like, wow. They actually see how this can change their world. More critically, can change our world for the better. So the structure is one thing, but what we do under the structure is quite another. So we've been doing all kinds of relationship building. I call myself the 1,000-watt bulb when I go to Ottawa, because it's like they're totally in the dark over there. You go there with a little bit of light, it's like, wow! I said, why don't you actually let these bureaucrats out into the Indian country sometime? Then they actually might feel like they can do better work. It's like they don't even know what an Indian is. You come into the oh, an Indian's in Indian affairs. I gave Colleen one of our orange t-shirts when I visited where they're. I happened to be there 2 days before the orange t-shirt day. And I gave her an orange t-shirt. And I said, Colleen, here, now you got a t-shirt for Wednesday, just in case you didn't have an orange one. Okay? So I knew she had it. I didn't say anything to many other people. I got a note from Colleen on that Wednesday that said, Gwen, I wore the orange t-shirt and my Aboriginal staff noticed. What do you figure, eh? You're going to notice, eh? The boss is wearing the orange. I said to her, Colleen, you don't realize what an impact wearing that shirt made on those people, okay? Huge statement just by wearing that orange t-shirt. So she's ready to support change, but we've got to be ready to meet her. We've got to be ready to actually be disciplined, to be strategic, to be positioned in such a way where we know what we need, and we're not just pounding the table and saying what we want. Okay? Because that's basically what they're used to. They're used to what they call political rhetoric. They're used to saying, oh yeah, we hear the chief, and the next chief comes and says the same thing and the same. I'm like, well, maybe you should listen. Maybe that's why they think they have to keep saying the same thing over and over, because nobody listens. So they say, okay, we're listening now. So there's a website acknowledged on here, www.vcfndgi.com. I ask you all to go there. Because on that website, we've got a bunch of resources now available, etc. There's a strategic framework that guides all this work going forward. What is the overall goal of this? Is to actually automate reporting, people. Automate reporting out of your community to Indian Affairs or whoever, so you don't have to worry about it. Did my report make it out on time? Did I fill in the right blanks? Oh shoot, I think I forgot the second page of that DCI. And now your finance officer's walking down the hall going, who didn't get the report in? Who didn't get the report in? Because we're not getting our money. We were actually going to be held back for a $20,000 project, $100-something thousand of money. It's like, and they even had the report, just didn't make it into the FNITP thing, right? It's like, enough of this. So this year they've actually committed to look at income assistance reporting. okay? So we're going to do what's called a demonstration project. What we've told them is we're going to demonstrate how we can fix things, and then we're going to automate and make it happen for everybody, become standard. So every improvement that's made, they've agreed that they will support it becoming a standard for British Columbia. Because they see what BC is doing will solve a lot of problems across Canada, actually. So we're going, okay, pay attention to BC. Because we're in nation rebuilding mode, we're in community development mode, we've taken over one of these senior institutions, we're starting to reorganize all of our other provincial institutions to actually impact these community plans in a good way. So we've had a couple of demonstration site gatherings, we've got a framework on that website called a community development framework, a framework for your data governance and community. So if you think about what is data governance, this is a guide to help you understand it on that website, as well as some policies, positions around data stewards, data champions, all of those things that is like, scratch your head, what does this mean, right? Surveillance. Surveillance is done on us and to us. We should be doing some surveillance as well. So why are we not monitoring the creeks, monitoring the watersheds, monitoring the soil, etc., and feeding into a broader database? There's actually systems now that are public systems where we can put information in. So we don't have to just relate to government to doing this work. When we get good data and we capture data, we can relate and partner up with all kinds of organizations. So on this website, you'll find all the minutes, all the everything we've done. You'll also find that wellness guide that's in your kit, measuring wellness. Also on there is a community planning guide for BC. So the CCP guide is on that website along with this guide. There's examples. We looked through all the surveys. You know that RHS survey, the REEE survey, those big, I call them the dipstick surveys, the monkey on the termite hill surveys. You probably heard me do that before, right? You stick the termite and yum yum. You go back 5 years later to do a survey, you stick in the termite hill and you pull it out and there's no termites. Well, what does that tell you? Absolutely nothing. So we say these dipstick surveys don't tell us anything in community, okay? Nothing. We actually need real-time data in communities, and we can generate national reports for you. So if we do things differently, you can get the same picture at the end, but we can actually have the picture we need in community to make decisions in real time. So they've committed to this, people, committed to it. So they say this year we're going to be looking at income assistance reporting, but what we're also doing is looking at the tripartite evaluation framework that will be used for our health evaluations. And I'm working with Harmony Johnson's team because Harmony says, I am not going to cause the communities to do the same crap reporting that Health Canada wanted them to do. We need to figure out what the communities need to report on for themselves. We need to figure out what we need to satisfy the spending authority we have as a First Nations Health Authority and figure out how to make the best possible business case to support it. So last year, you'll find the Indicator Development Guide examples. So on that website, there's another document. We went through, you know, the social determinants we talked about, culture, social support network, education, early child development. We went through those and we went from an Indigenous perspective. What would some outcomes be attached to these things? What could be some high-level tripartite outcomes that all three governments could agree to and invest in that we could then go home and define for ourselves on what we needed to do with that? So something like culture. It's one of the social determinants. Culture. An outcome. All Indigenous people are connected to their cultural heritage. Well, what that means to Tanaka is different than it would be to Tsimshian. But if we all want to be connected to our cultural heritage. So we want to drive the other governments up to the highest level outcomes. Tell us what you're really trying to achieve, and leave them there, and then us go about our work of nation rebuilding to get there. So we've done that analysis, and we've made some recommendations on what we could perhaps be measuring in a positive way. Not just taking the easy road of measuring death, but looking to measure vibrancy in our own terms again. And so getting systems in place to do that. So the framework is there. We've looked at the reporting capacity already possible under the child and family and health system that the Cowichan tribes have got, that many of us are using, the most of those systems. We've looked at the reporting capacity, and ANSI and Health Canada are going, oh my gosh, we could get that kind of data from those systems. And I'm going, well, we probably wouldn't give you all that kind of data because you don't need it. But to know that it exists and we can be accountable, that's another story. So they're agreeing now that no, we don't need to have all the data. We just need to know that you have the data and you can be accountable to your people for your funding and for your outcomes. Well, yes, that's what self-government means. So we're now looking at also, what are you guys doing, federal and provincial governments? Because you want to know how much money they spend on data machinery, etc. One time they spent $150 million on a child and family system that didn't even work. Okay? Meanwhile, the Caucus and tribe systems, the development work they do, we've been told for $2 million we can get it in every First Nations community in BC. So I'm now lobbying the federal government, not First Nations Health Authority, because they don't have the money. And if they do, they're going to steal Peter to pay Paul, and I don't want that, because Paul is as important as Peter. So I'm going after the federal treasury for direct investments for these kind of systems. Direct government investments. Invest in our governance, because if you get good governance, then the rest is easy. The rest is easy. The relationships with the province, with industry, it all comes a lot easier when we've got good governance and we're not scrambling to try to figure out how do we keep the chief paid so they can keep doing the work for us. Because my communities, I think it's like $500 a month or $1,000 a month honorary or some crazy thing like that. But the council and the chiefs are expected to be on task and be on hand and be there. Deal with dogs, deal with sewers. I said to the feds, do you realize we're the only government in Canada that deals with everything? They looked at me, I said, we deal with local government, municipal government, regional government, provincial government, and federal government issues. Oh my gosh, we didn't realize. Oh yeah, you didn't realize that because you think you're the only game we deal with, right? So they didn't even understand what our business world was like. The next steps we're going to do, we're going to start incrementally looking to get systemic change. One thing's developed, get it out to everybody. One thing's developed, get it out to everybody. But more critically, how do we get all of the provincial First Nations organizations working together so that we can all be supporting this kind of thing? All be supporting comprehensive plans. All be looking at not trying to drive everybody down our road, but how do we drive down your road to meet you at your gate, invest in your plans, etc., and not try to get you to make our plan look good at a provincial level. So those demonstration sites this year will be working with us to get the framework involved, in play in their community, the policy house in order, etc., and to be showing how to take income assistance reporting from whatever your workflow is. Because we've realized in some communities they're still doing paper-based charting. They're using a little spiral notebook and a pencil, right? And that's how they're doing their work. Other ones have created Excel spreadsheets. Other ones do have systems in place doing this work. So we've got to be able to meet the diversity of BC First Nations where we're at. So we're going to be using a technical person to develop a system to take it from an Excel spreadsheet, to take it from the SWAB system, to even help the paper-based forms get into an automated system. So over the course of this year, we'll be demonstrating how, from a variety of different workflows, we can automate income assistance reporting, get it happening for everybody over the next year, and then take on the next program area. So incrementally, taking the program one by one, dismantling it, figuring out what are we actually trying to report to, putting tools underneath it in the communities and system support, and then moving on to automation. So we can do the real work. Because all we're doing right now is managing their problems. We're not even getting ahead with our own solutions, basically. So we are going to be working closely as this 10-year wellness strategy unfolds. I've been participating at those tables, listening, telling them, you know what, we can actually measure these things. We can be ready to do these things if we get investments, okay? So they're showing how we can't make pretty promises unless we can deliver on those things. No more, like the last 10-year health plan like I talked about this morning, no more, it looks good on paper, but it has no reality at all. We won't let that happen anymore. So we're looking to support that wellness strategy as it unfolds, being ready to measure what it is we agreed to. And we're also going to be hosting, coming up in February and March, and there was that data guy. Hey, data guy! Hey, this is for you. We're going to be hosting regional data governance sessions. So we're going to have 2 days in the north to really drill down into data governance, to talk about what are we going to measure, to talk about research ethics, to talk about all of the things that First Nations Health Authority is going to measure, okay? So we'll be doing that work to start really shaping up. How are we going to do reporting reform? How are we going to make sure we're attaching our reports to our community plans? Because that's what I said. The other beautiful thing, you know the One Report Initiative? Have any of you heard of that thing? Do you remember Jeff Phillips when he was the RDG over here? And when he left, he was doing this thing called One Report Initiative for headquarters. They were trying to basically get First Nations to, just one report. I'm like, yeah. When I saw what their idea of one report was, I'm going, please don't make us do that. What their idea of one report was is they were going to basically generate this way for all the data we feed to them over the course of the data collection instruments through the year. They were going to spit it back to us in a template form. Ooh. My people would not accept that. Our reporting is way past that point, I'm sorry. Our people like to see the pictures of themselves, they like to actually know what's going on in the community. not a regurgitation of Indian Affairs information. So we said to them, how about if we devise what one report would look like for our nation that would satisfy our citizens? Because isn't that who we're supposed to be accountable to? And then we give you that one report. And the automated data you get from these systems, you do whatever the heck you want with it. If you want to generate a report, go for it. But more critically, we'll just do our reporting for our people with information that makes sense to us. So telling our own stories in our own words. So this Data Governance Initiative One report, the person who was assigned at headquarters to the data initiative, Diana Prosser, she's now been given the one report thing. She's been moved from social policy into audit and evaluation. And if you don't know, that's a significant move. So they've moved it from a program area to understanding that it's actually a corporate issue here, an overarching corporate issue. So Diana has been assigned to the One Report initiative, and she'll be working with us to figure out how do we get both the systems in place and to the One Report quicker for BC in a way that makes sense to us. And we've said to them, invest in our comprehensive community plans and our nation rebuilding plans. Two separate plans, two separate things in there. You're dealing with language, environment, etc. in the nation plan. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with schools, you're dealing with those things in the community plan. Those are both important things and have to happen at the same time. We also, at the same time, are looking at health and wellness determinants, strategy in the regions. Those will be based on the community and nation-based plans. Not the other way around, not the tobacco reduction strategy. How are you going to make it happen? I said to them, will you please stop that? I'm from Tobacco Plains. Okay? Stop saying tobacco reduction strategy, Health Canada. We want to actually go to a tobacco sacredness strategy, putting it back to what it used to be. In my nation, there were only certain people who could plant, harvest, distribute, etc. tobacco. It was so sacred, right? So don't say get rid of tobacco. Let's put it back to what it should be. So again, their understandings are not the right understandings for moving our wellness forward. So building those wellness plans from the ground up is what Doug envisions, what we all envision. Community-based nation, or community-driven nation-based indicators. The little things you want to measure belong to you, but attach themselves to tripartite outcomes. Cultural heritage, whatever it means to you. And that those things basically form that deputy minister strategy. So the deputy ministers are going to hear about what they need to do to liberate policy to, in fact, invest well in those wellness strategies. And that pretty much is in how the Data Governance Initiative is going to attach to the Wellness Initiative. One is the will, the other is the way. So supporting with tools and instruments our nation rebuilding activities. Taha.